The state calls Alisa.
All right, good morning. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is on my right. Raise your right hand and my clerk, Teresa, will swear you in. First thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and then spell each.
Alisa.
What were the approximate age ranges of the girls that you instructed at Extreme?
Just myself.
The girls who were dancers, how old were they? You're not able to give an accurate estimate about how fast the SUV was traveling at that point, is that right?
I could.
Okay. Well, please, if you think you can, please tell us how fast do you think it was traveling?
Overruled.
I thought around 55.
That's all I have for direct examination, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Brooks, you may question the witness if you have any questions for her.
I don't consent to being called that name, as I stated before. I will note that, like that noted for the
defendant
record.
can question the witness now.
Is that noted for the record, Your Honor?
Ask your questions, please.
Is it noted for the record, Your Honor? As you testified to earlier, you were present at the Christmas parade on November 21st of 2021. Would that be fair to say? Do you remember about how long you intended to be at the parade? It was a few exhibits that you stated on record that you weren't familiar with seeing. Would that be fair to say?
Once clarified, I did say that. I remembered seeing them.
So you saw those videos before today? About how many times do you recall seeing them before today? Do you recall who showed them to you? You stated for the record and for the jury?
Can you repeat that?
Can you state who showed you the videos for the record and for the jury?
The state.
And who would you be referring to when you say the state?
The three seated next to you.
Are you referring to the opposite table next to me? Let the record reflect that. She identified the three prosecutors sitting at the prosecution table. Do you recall knowing if you would possibly be called to testify? Were you expecting to testify?
I got a letter in the mail.
Do you recall if that letter was a subpoena? You frequently referred to the vehicle as the car. Do you recall those statements? So for clarification, what type of vehicle did you see that day? Was it a car?
A Ford SUV.
And how were you able to determine the make and model of the vehicle?
I saw the Ford emblem.
And during those determinations of the make and model of the vehicle, did you catch a description of the driver? Any reason why you would be more focused on the make and model of the vehicle instead of who was driving the vehicle? And you didn't try to see if you can spot a license plate at any time?
It all happened way too fast.
So would it be fair to say that it happened fast enough for you to not be able to make out the model and make of the vehicle?
I knew exactly what it was.
But not exactly who was driving the vehicle. You stated that you observed some girls from your dance team in the hospital. Would that be fair to say? And you stated that a few of them were laying on the ground. Any idea why they would be laying on the ground in the hospital?
Because there was so many people.
Were they being attended to at that time? Did you recall feeling like maybe they should have been attended to, seeing as how they may have been seriously injured?
The nurses were doing the best they could.
So it would be fair to say that the girls that you observed on the ground weren't of immediate concern to the nurses at that time. Were you injured in any way during this incident? And you testified earlier to the approximate speed of the vehicle. Do you recall what your answer was? And how were you able to come to that determination?
I've drove for a couple of years now, and that's just the number that came to my head. Because when I drive, I know what 55 feels like, and I know what 25 feels like, and that was just my best guess.
So it would be fair to say that you were making an assumption. You didn't know for sure.
That was just my best guess.
You made a reference to a young woman by the name of Sam. Would that be fair to say? And what relation do you have to Sam? Is she just part of the dance group or a close friend? Or do you recall seeing her struck by the vehicle? Do you remember where she was at the time that you saw the vehicle pass you?
She was on the left side in front.
Would it be fair to say that from that angle that you would be able to see her if she was struck? So you don't know for sure where she was at when the vehicle passed you. Do you know if anyone was standing there or in that position with her at that time?
She would have been the only dancer in her spot.
So it would have been people in her general area, but not directly next to her. Do you remember what you did immediately after the vehicle passed you? In regards to your dance team, did you observe anyone struck?
I remember seeing bodies in the air and on the ground.
So at that point, it would be fair to say that you didn't know if the people that were on the ground or in the air or whatnot were in fact struck by a vehicle.
I think I blacked out.
By blacked out, what do you mean by that? State that, what that means for the jury and for the record.
I can't see anything, but I can hear.
Was that the first time that you ever had a blackout? So it's never happened before that day. Any idea what caused it on that occasion?
Stress, shock.
And you stated that you got into a ambulance and with someone who was struck and then left the parade at that point?
A squad car.
Oh, I'm sorry, a squad. You left at that point. Do you recall about what time that was? Do you recall how long you were with the person being transported at that time? Do you recall if anyone was walking directly next to you at the time of the incident? Do you recall walking next to Sam or Sam walking next to you? Do you recall making the statement that, and this is, I'm guessing, in a summary report given to Detective Schwartz? Do you recall being interviewed by Detective Schwartz? Do you recall making a statement that Samantha was walking next to you? Do you recall making a statement that you did not have enough time to tell Sam to move? And this was the same Sam that you just testified that you did not see struck. So it would be fair to say that you made the statement that you didn't have enough time to tell her to move, but didn't actually see what happened to her. Any idea what may have stopped you from being able to see what happened?
Because I blacked out.
At the point that you blacked out, at that point you didn't see anyone struck. Would that be fair to say?
I just remember bodies flying.
Do you recall making a statement that everything happened so fast, but not fast enough for you to identify the vehicle? Do you recall if the vehicle had any damage at that point?
I wasn't looking for any damage.
About how close would you estimate the vehicle came to you? Did it get close to you?
Blacked out.
Do you remember what side of the road you were on when you blacked out?
I was on the left side, and so I was on the right side.
So at what point did your memory go fuzzy?
I told myself, "You're crazy." All of a sudden, I don't remember anything.
Any idea how long that may have been, roughly, if you recall?
A second.
Pretty much like the snap of a finger. And from your recollection, that was quick enough for you to miss anybody being struck.
I blacked out.
Outside of Detective Schwartz, were you interviewed by any other law enforcement? What about at the hospital? Were you interviewed at the hospital? Did you call yourself to make a report about what you saw that evening? Did you do any follow-up to see if your report was received by anyone in law enforcement? Did anybody from law enforcement contact you about the statement that you gave? Do you recall at any time reading or seeing a complaint in this matter? Do you recall at any time filing any claim in this matter? Would you consider yourself a party to this matter? Do you recall if you were contacted by the plaintiff in this matter?
Can you say who the plaintiff is?
I'm asking you, are you aware of the plaintiff? Were you contacted by the plaintiff at any time?
I don't know what the plaintiff is.
The plaintiff would be whoever is bringing the claim for the charges in the matter.
So not, then yeah.
Yeah, what? You were contacted by the plaintiff?
Objection.
She answered yes. I'll ask her grounds.
An objection, hold on.
Who were you contacted about testifying?
The state,
And that, I'm assuming the state of Wisconsin, correct?
right there.
Right there, as in referring to the prosecution table. She identified the state as the three attorneys at the prosecution table. And do you recall having a conversation with the state? Would it be fair to say that you would identify the state as the plaintiff in this matter? Have you ever had any interactions with the plaintiff in this matter? Do you see the plaintiff in the courtroom today? Do you even know if there's a plaintiff? So as far as you know, in your opinion, who would you say is the plaintiff in this matter? Were you present at the parade with any family that day?
No.
Just 1 second. And when you visited the hospital, how did you learn of the injuries to any of your dance team partners?
Which hospital?
I only heard you say Memorial. You might have said two. I think you said Children's one time too. Would that be fair to say? I guess I would be referring to Memorial.
Julia had something wrong with her brain at the time because they saw spinal fluid coming out of her nose.
And were you told that directly from a doctor?
I heard them freaking out and rushing her to a CT scan because I was right next to her, helping them as she seized and vomited.
So you overheard from the nurses what the diagnosis was?
Yes.
What about for Sam?
Are you referring to the night of?
Yes, when I'm guessing you saw her at some point that night. Did you see her at any point? Were you told directly by medical professionals at that time that you were able to see her of any possible injuries?
I wasn't told by them. She actually called me.
Can I strike that answer for hearsay? Right?
No, you asked the question.
But the answer was hearsay.
But you asked the question.
In the days after the incident, did you have quite a few interactions with the dance team? Did you attend any visuals or any memorials or anything like that? Would you state for the record and for the jury how many? And that would be the only one that you attended. Were you aware of things set up financially for the victims?
Can you repeat that?
Were you aware of any for example, like GoFundMe's or donations or anything for the victims? Were you aware of anything like that going on in the days after the incident? Did you yourself donate to any causes associated with the incident? Are you still currently a member of the dance team?
Tell me which one you're referring to.
What is it, Extreme Dance Team?
Yeah, I am not.
And was that decision made by the incident, or was it just a personal decision? You testified earlier to having the blackout and that being the first time. Have you had any blackouts any time since that day? First and only time would be that day.
Correct.
No further questions.
Thank you. You may step down.